Everyone seems to remember that day in their own way, but my version begins with the velvet curtains and the weight of 100 eyes on me, stronger than the glare of the stage lights. My knees clamped together, nerves humming up through my jaw as I blinked at the jury lining the front of the auditorium. The score for Chopin slipped from my shaking hands, the music in my head wiped away by panic. For weeks I'd practiced every bar, yet all I could dredge up in that moment was a cold, complete emptiness. Somewhere off to the left, someone cleared their throat. My mother, dead center in the front row, wound her watch strap over and over. Even before I'd played a note, I could sense her embarrassment. Even now, sometimes I feel the stickiness of that piano bench on my skin and the stale, flowery air of the auditorium pushing into my lungs. I forced down the first chord, but my fingers tripped, landing in the wrong spots, rattling out the wrong sounds. The giggle from the back row strung, a quick, sharp cut. My chest tightened and everything blurred with tears I tried to hold back. The whispers pressed in, "He's choking, too much for him, knew he wasn't cut out for this." Dread overwhelmed me, I almost ran. Instead, I slogged through the rest, praying just to finish, but nothing flowed. Not the melody, not my breathing, not the patience of the crowd. When I finished, the light applause felt like a sigh of relief that it was over, not appreciation. The jury gave me polite thanks without even glancing up. As I bowed, my hands squeezed into fists. My dad caught my eye and mouthed, "That's it," like he'd expected a gift and gotten a box of scraps. Outside, the bright sun felt almost punishing. Sweat ran down my back, my heart hollow and heavy. I knew it then. I hadn't just botched the piece, I'd failed the myth that I could ever be someone who belonged up there. The embarrassment didn't fade but slipped into everything after, like ink in water. News traveled fast in our corner of East LA. Max froze at the piano audition. Max broke down in front of everyone. My cousins tried to avoid talking about it at barbecues, but my mother never did. "You don't finish what you start," she would snap, slicing vegetables in the kitchen. "You always talk big, but what do you ever really do?" My father was blunter. "Time to stop daydreaming about being special. Fantasy won't pay the bills." Their disappointment hardened, sank to the bottom of every conversation, silent and heavy. Our family didn't really encourage hope. My dad worked building roofs, always wincing from old injuries he barely let heal before tearing them again. For him, getting ahead was about taking the hits and just grinding on. My mother spent her nights baking, her hands pink from the ovens, saying little but never needing to. I'd always been the oddball, breaking open old radios and piecing them back together, missing soccer games while watching MIT lectures on my phone. I didn't know it at the time, but the hope inside me would change shapes, become something I never expected. I became a lesson to the kids in the neighborhood. When friends of the family dropped by, they'd smirk and ask, "So Max playing piano anytime soon?" They'd pile into our cramped living room, the men talking shop and the women gossiping, always coming around to real talents, like getting a good union job or pitching for the Little League. Computer stuff, especially AI, wasn't what they meant. When I tried to explain how algorithms could help solve big problems, all I got were blank stares and jokes from my Uncle Marco. Letting machines think. Sounds like someone's wasting time. That summer, while everyone found shade at family barbecues or packed into church, I hid in the local library, seeking the only peace I knew. There on a battered public computer, I found a beginner's book on Python. It clicked. For the first time since the disaster on the piano bench, my hands steadied. Coding made sense, the rules were clear, the results honest. I spent hot afternoons teaching myself, growing obsessed. I built a little tool that could make stock predictions, and though it barely scraped by, that first spark of creation was more thrilling than any applause. Weeks later, my parents found out when a teacher showed up with a letter. I'd won a scholarship to a summer coding camp, their faces twisted in confusion and disapproval. "But what does that even mean?" my father asked, squinting at the printout. I tried clumsily to explain neural networks, but they just heard nonsense. "Playing with computers, that's not a job, Max," my father grumbled. My mother only sighed, covering her mouth. "Dreams like that are for people with money." Their rejection landed hard, a sick, sour ache, but when I hunched over a keyboard in my room at night, their voices faded behind the clean rhythm of logic and code. High school meant surviving. My hand-me-down clothes hung wrong, I ducked fights I couldn't win and stopped sharing ideas with teachers or classmates. When word got out I wanted to be some kind of AI engineer, the older kids, the ones who'd teased me since my piano shame, just rolled their eyes. Mr. Robot, they called me. I just looked away. Still, I kept going. At night, while the city sweltered, I sifted through online coding challenges, entering hackathons under fake names. When I won my first little competition, $100 and a PDF certificate, I hid it under my mattress. My father's only comment on long nights by the blue light was maybe help your cousin lay tile instead of chasing this computer nonsense. College applications loomed. The idea that I'd even pick computer science as my major became its own joke. Almost everyone laughed except me. When I got into USC on a partial scholarship, my father's face darkened. That's not for people like us. My mother just pressed her lips into a thin line. Where are you gonna get the rest of the money? At every family gathering they'd snort, engineer her. Know anyone who has that job around here? A week before I left for school, my parents called everyone over, an impromptu intervention with relatives and even the church priest. My father's words were cold. Always chasing things too big. When you fall, you'll see. Those words stuck with me as I packed a duffel bag with $40 and an old laptop. College wasn't some golden world either. At USC, classmates dropped terms like IPO and pre-seed funding. I didn't belong and I couldn't pretend I did. 2 jobs kept me running, mornings in the dining hall, nights in the library. I skipped parties for lines of code. One by one, I built cheap but real things, an app for the visually impaired, an image recognition tool for public buses. The first time a project really worked, it felt more real than standing on any stage ever had. By junior year, I scored an internship at Unicity Labs, a new tech startup. I walked into a workspace of glass and brick and weird green living walls. There, everyone cared less about background and more about results. My mentor, Layla, grilled my work until I hated her and then made me realize what I really wanted, not just clever code, but technology that actually helped people. We built an early warning wildfire detector. There were long nights in a box-sized room with 3 roommates. I often woke up at 2 a.m. to code, fueled by cheap ramen and harder memories. Whenever I wanted to stop, I'd hear again the voices of my family, doubtful, disappointed, daring me to fail. At summer's end, our software quietly flagged a fire risk which, in the news that week, saved hundreds of homes. Layla's team threw a party. For me, the real moment was texting my mother. The tool helped save people. All she said was, "That's good, call your grandma." That was enough. I'd found meaning where no one expected. After that, I stayed with Unicity. I moved up, slowly earning their faith and learning to hold my ground. Our tech grew, language tools for first responders, AI for emergency rooms. Now and then I'd remember sitting at that piano years earlier, feeling that failure twist in my gut. The memory softened little by little. 5 years into my career, I got an email that made me stop short. The city's human services wanted to pilot our outreach software at the community center in my old neighborhood, a demo for local officials, workers, even a few curious families. 5 blocks from where I'd grown up, I felt old panic and excitement crowd my breath as I answered, "I'll do it." Driving past my old block, nothing looked changed. Graffiti on the corner bodega, kids on battered scooters, windows open to voices and music. I parked under the one tired sycamore and walked into the community center, breathing the same old mix of cleaner and sweat and birthday cake. Familiar faces were everywhere. My uncle Marco in his Dodgers jersey, my mother in nice clothes pretending not to fidget, my father against the back wall. Even Layla had come, lending me a look of quiet encouragement. As I set up, the old jokes came back. "Gonna teach the city how to use a phone, Max," ribbed Marco. "Hope your computer don't burn out." I smiled for the first time, not forced but real, and spoke. No magic, just straightforward explanations, how algorithms could help real people by sorting cases, flagging urgent needs, directing help without paperwork nightmares. "I know waiting for help," I told them all. "This is about making it faster, not taking jobs away." We ran a practice test, single mom, 3 kids, about to lose housing, feeding the info into our system. In 10 seconds, it pulled up local shelters, expedited forms, nearby childcare help. The social worker in the front row just stared at the results. We spend all day getting less than this. It was quiet, then applause. My father clapped first, slow, shy, real. Others joined. People pressed in, asking questions about seniors, about missing paperwork, about if the tool could help their nephew. My mother's face was a mess of pride and disbelief. My father came up and shook my hand, rough and honest. Maybe you were right to dream, he said softly. Uncle Marco wrapped me in a half hug, laughing. Didn't see that coming. Guess I was wrong, huh? The look on his face. Pride, not mockery. Afterward, as dusk painted the street gold, I sat alone on the center steps. The city sang, cars, laughter, distant dogs. For the first time, I wasn't the failed kid at the piano or the outsider to the neighborhood. I was just Max, home again, changed but whole. The wounds from before felt faded, finally closing. Not the applause, not the business deal, but this moment, home, earned, forgiven, was the real victory. I stayed behind to help clean up, breathing the smell of our city, warmth, old bread, hope. As I watched the sky go pink above the rooftops I'd once wanted to escape, I realized all the struggle and rejection had led me back here, not to prove anything but to give back. In the end, that's what mattered most.